Next week's speaker will be Lamont Cole, so you might want to make a note to attend. All right, well, I know you all know Cleo, but I'm going to do this especially for the TV folks, that Cleo is an elected member of the United States House of Representatives, and he serves in the 6th District, as we all know. With over 3 decades of public service, he's dedicated his career to improving the lives of Louisianians through leadership, vision, and action. He's a graduate of McKinley High School and Southern University. He earned his JD, Juris Doctorate from Southern in 1987, and at just 24, he made history as the youngest person ever elected to the Louisiana State Senate. And that was in 1992, he was elected to the U.S. House of Representatives. And he was the youngest member of the 103rd Congress. And after a historic run for governor in 1995, he returned home to develop his law practice. The Fields Law Firm is the name of the law firm. However, his passion for service wasn't extinguished as he was re-elected to the state senate in 1997 till 2012 and again in 2019.
You're welcome.
His time in the Senate allowed him to serve as chair of the Louisiana Legislative Black Caucus. He's chairman of the Education, Local, and Municipal Affairs Committees, has been, and Senate and Governmental Affairs Committee. Let's all welcome Cleo Fields.
Let's first thank John for that warm introduction. I really appreciate that introduction. John and I go way back to when I started at the state legislature. He was a big lobbyist, and now I asked the question, I said, is he lobbying still? But John, thank you so very much. I don't know if I want to speak or just sit back and listen to you introduce me over and over and over again. Give John a big round of applause. I want to thank, I guess that's the mic. I want to thank everybody for being here this morning. I'm going to talk a little bit about what has taken place in Washington, D.C., and then I'm going to open up the floor for questions. It's been a tough 7 months in Washington. It's been a lot taking place. I've enjoyed my stay in Washington, D.C., but it has been a very, very tough time for me as a member of the U.S. Congress. And let me first of all thank Speaker Johnson for letting us off early, because he wanted us to come back and deal with the issues here in Louisiana. Let me first talk about the big, I call it the big ugly bill. The big ugly bill passed the legislature recently. I really do not see how it is beautiful for Louisiana because of the impact it's going to have on the people of Louisiana. It gives about a $4.4 billion tax break to the very wealthy, and it cuts about $1.1 trillion in health care benefits for the very poor. Nationwide, 17 million people will lose their health insurance. In Louisiana, 260,000 people will lose their health insurance. In the 6th District, about 36,000 people will lose their health insurance. They also added some Medicaid requirements, and many people say, well, what's wrong with people going to work? There's nothing wrong with people working, but about 2/3 of the people who are on health care, on Medicare, already work. There is 2 requirements for people who are on Medicaid to report their work status. Many states have tried that. They have failed. It costs more money to account for the folk than it did to have the program. Rural hospitals will suffer, about 33 in Louisiana. Many are in my district. And the work requirement just simply doesn't work. SNAP benefits, many people will lose their benefits to fresh foods because of this bill. In my district alone, we got about 37,000 people who will lose their SNAP benefits. And it's just a bad, bad bill. I can go on and on and on. There is a good silver lining, or a silver lining in this bad bill in my view, and that is the no tax on tips and overtime. And a lot of people get excited about that, and I support that measure. But at the end of the day, it expires. It expires in 2028. Once it takes effect, it lasts, and then it expires. There are a lot of issues in the Pell Grant program of the bill, and it increased ICE funding. Now, that's pretty much the big bad bill. Educational, let me give you an update on education. The Trump administration fight to eliminate the Department of Education. Their plan to dismantle the Department of Education is real and is affecting every part of our country. The Supreme Court has supported the employees that were relieved of their duties, about 1,300 employees in the country. Also, there's been student loans. There's talk about moving the student loan program to the Department of Education. There's also talk about moving the labor to the adult working parts of the Department of Education to the Department of Labor, and moving civil rights to the Department of Justice. Those are some of the changes they anticipate with the Department of Education. Also, there's a lot of talk about FEMA. I know this is hurricane season and everybody is interested in what's going on with FEMA. Since the Trump administration took office, FEMA has lost about 1/3 of their full-time employees. 2,000 of them are experienced, top-level employees. There's a big brain drain in the Department of FEMA. The system has really been degraded, probably at the worst time that it could happen in our country. FEMA has been degraded. The NOAA and staffing shortfalls have slowed development of precise hurricane models. That affects Louisiana because Louisiana in the past have been able to anticipate when a hurricane was coming, and we were able to react to it accordingly. Critical funding for preparedness. The Trump administration has proposed $1 billion cuts in FEMA grants used for local governments. There's been an elimination of over half of FEMA emergency management and homestead security grants to the several states. And I can go on and on about FEMA. We've been working hard to try to offset some of these FEMA cuts, but it's been a disaster. The Trump administration efforts to dismantle FEMA most essential programs jeopardize the security of our nation and our emergency preparedness. We just passed the rescission package last week that mainly dealt with public broadcasting. Most of us know it here in Louisiana as Louisiana Public Broadcasting. We went back and took money that Congress had already appropriated at a tune of $1.1 billion, and we scaled it back. Why am I so against that? Because I represent a rural parish, represent rural parishes in the 6th District, and many of them depend on public broadcasting as their only source of information during a time of storm and natural disasters. That money was rolled back, appropriated, and they rolled back $1.1 billion. ICE, most of you have heard about the deportation. I do think we need to have a secure border. I do think that we need to maintain a secure border. But the way ICE has been interfacing with the people here in America, in my view, has been simply unconscionable. We allow ICE agents to confront citizens with masks without identifying themselves. And I think that's dangerous for both sides, quite frankly. I think it's dangerous to the person who is actually trying to effect an arrest, and it's dangerous for the person who is being arrested. In America, we do have something called due process, and we do not shield our identity in law enforcement. And last week I sent a letter to Secretary Norm advising her that that policy is wrong, it's draconian, and it should be changed. Now, the last thing I want to talk about is proposed legislation that I have. I've introduced, if it's not introduced, it'll be introduced when we return from break. We were looking for co-authors and trying to get as many co-authors as possible. One piece of legislation is a teacher student loan forgiveness program. When I graduated from Southern years ago, the largest department, or the largest college on the campus was the College of Education. Recently, there were only 3 graduates in the College of Education. That's not unique to Southern University. That's all over the country at every university, college in the United States. We have to do something about encouraging students to major in the department, in education. Because if we continue to go down this road, we're not going to have folk to educate our children in the future. So I've introduced a bill that will provide for forgiving student loans for students who major in education and practice their profession for 8 years within the state in public education. That won't solve the problem, but it will certainly address it to try to get people, young people to major in education. By the way, I got 2 of my interns here. Ms. Washington, who's attending Southern University in nursing, and Mr. Laws, who's just graduated from high school, about to go to LSU for engineering? Accounting. I want to thank both of them for being here. But that bill is introduced to try to get people more inclined to major in education. Secondly, there's a bill that I have, which I've been talking to members of Congress about this idea. It's going to take a lot more work with this bill because it costs so much money. Universal early childhood education. Why is that important? I really think if we as a nation address our education problem early, it's really going to solve a lot of the ills of our society for the future. I think grading a kid at in third grade is too late. I think this bill will provide for us to intervene in a kid's life at 2 years of age. Why is that important? Because our kids do not have any intervention with formalized education until they're in kindergarten. And before we passed the bill to make kindergarten mandatory, it was the 1st grade. I think we have to intervene into kids' lives early. It's going to cost more on the front side of life, but on the back side of life, it's going to cost less because I think less kids will drop out, less kids will be involved in crime, and so it's really an intervention bill. I'm talking to members of Congress now, trying to round up as much support as I can for it, but it won't pass this year. I'm not under any illusion that the bill will pass this year. But I'm starting it now so that I can start building up support, and hopefully one day the U.S. Congress will pass a bill similar to this one. Lastly, there's another bill that I've introduced, which deals with nutrition. There are a lot of folk who benefit from SNAP in Louisiana, and I know this past legislative session there was bills there were bills that dealt with. I think one provided that you can't buy soda pops, you can't buy sugar, chips, and all of that. A lot of people do this because they don't have access to healthy foods. A lot of people live in food deserts. And so what I've done with this bill, I am trying to attempt to allow a person to have their food, their groceries delivered to them by using their SNAP benefits. That bill is not, once it's explained, it's not as controversial as it may sound, because I think we all want people to have healthy foods. That's pretty much my overview, and now I start taking questions. Yes, sir.
Congressman, we have a president who signed executive orders targeting individual citizens, private law firms, silencing journalists, media organizations, and lawsuits. You mentioned ICE, some of the people that have been shipped off to foreign prisons, and he also has a DOJ official who was once his personal attorney meeting with a convicted child sex trafficker on refusal to release Epstein files. There is a standing army with over 2,000 federal troops occupying downtown Los Angeles. An analysis last week found the president ignoring or defying 1/3 of court orders that have ruled against him. Why are you not talking about these things? And, is there a sense of urgency that you have on any of these matters?
Absolutely, and I've been talking about, I would think, everything that you have enumerated in real time when they actually happen. And look, I think the president has really taken this country closer and closer to bringing this country closer and closer to a dictatorship. And I've said to my constituents that the best way to deal with a bully is to stand up to him. Congress just has not stood up to President Trump. President Trump does not respect, in my view, the rule of law, and he has continuously just ignored Congress, signed executive orders, and then Congress would give its blessings to it, in subsequent weeks. I think the courts is still a good avenue, and I think the courts, to some degree, are, ruling that many of these executive orders are unconstitutional. We have filed in about 180 some lawsuits against the president and this administration because of their draconian moves on executive orders. But it won't change until the Congress, assert its constitutional authority as an independent form of government, and Congress hasn't done that. And we are hopeful that the Supreme Court will do it, and in many instances they have. But just like the big ugly bill, that bill was passed, and many of the bad measures of this bill won't even take effect until after the midterm elections. It's our job to talk to our constituents across the country about the effects of this bill, and I've been doing it, and other members of Congress are doing the same. Question? Yes, sir.
I was wondering if you could give us an update on redistricting, especially in your district.
Redistricting, the Supreme Court punted the ruling on the Louisiana redistricting case. I was disappointed, as well as many others. But I do think that the Supreme Court realized the effect of their ruling on the nation. I mean, you know, whatever the Supreme Court ruled will have national implications on redistricting cases all across this country. So I would think that's one of the reasons why they held up, because they want to get it right. But we in the position we in today because of the Supreme Court, quite frankly. Legislatures have been following the courts, and the courts have ruled that political gerrymandering is okay, for example, but racial gerrymandering is not. The plaintiffs in Louisiana have filed a suit, which was unique. They filed a suit under the 14th Amendment, challenging the 14th Amendment, saying that their rights were violated under the 14th Amendment. And the Supreme Court has in my view, not a difficult job, but they have to articulate, you know, whether or not the Voting Rights Act, which Louisiana followed, is violative of the 14th Amendment. And I don't think they're going to do that because, you know, I was in the legislature when the lines were drawn, and I can tell you the lines look the way they look, not for racial reasons, but for political reasons. And they're going to give Louisiana yet another opportunity to argue that case. Now, further, if I may take it a step further, you know, other states, you know, led by the president, you know, is now, you know, using redistricting not as a census deal, but as a political deal. I think it's untasteful for the president to state that he's going to have Texas, for example, to redistrict so that he can get more Republicans. You know, redistricting, you know, should not be used as a political tool. It should be used as a tool to count numbers and distribute political power across the nation. But if that floodgate is open, then Democratic states will do the same, and I think it'll be absolute chaos. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you so much. Just a follow-up question about redistricting. So it very well could be that we don't see a decision, or it's a full year until we see a decision, and then that starts to put us close to the November election. So does that mean we continue to have the same congressional district map that we do right now? Is that how you see this?
Yeah, that's what's anticipated, but the Supreme Court is not going to discuss the redistricting matter in Louisiana until its next session. Can they rule, can they argue, and they have not issued a scheduling order as of yet. The first thing that will happen is the court will issue a scheduling order to give the plaintiffs and the defendants to come, you know, enough time to come back to the court and argue their points, and they're going to give some guidelines as to what points they have some confusion with. Can you do all of that before January? Louisiana has changed this election process to a closed primary. I don't think so. But is it possible? It's possible, but not practical. So for all practical purposes, I would think that the next congressional elections will be under the present plan. Yes, ma'am.
Hi. Does your healthy foods bill include any restrictions for what can be used for SNAP card purchases and delivery, that foods that are known to cause diabetes and obesity? Does your bill eliminate or include any language for purchasing healthy foods versus or receiving healthy foods versus foods that cause health issues?
Yeah, the bill does not, the bill basically follows the present guidelines under SNAP,
Means anything.
the existing guidelines. But it only gives people who are in, well, not just food deserts, but it only gives people who receive SNAP benefits the opportunity to have their food, their groceries rather, delivered to them from a grocery store. And it'll be universal across the country.
Could you repeat the question after? Try to get it up.
Yes, sir.
Thanks.
Yes, sir.
In the waning days of the Obama administration, the Justice Department released a report on Louisiana State Police that was pretty critical. About 3 months later, the new Justice Department fully retracted that report. Do you have any commentary on either of those two actions?
Well, the Justice Department released a report on how Louisiana State Police were, their patterns and practice. And his question is, do I have any new information on the report that was issued by the Justice Department? No, I do not. I do not. But I will tell you this. I have been talking with the Attorney General's office in Louisiana and trying to convince the Attorney General to settle the case, the Green case. I think the Green case was outrageous. I think the mother relives this every single day as talked about. We did not look good as a state, and we should claim, should own up to what we did wrong. I was in the legislature. We passed a lot of laws where police officers are to act and perform their duties differently, and we should own up to it and move on. And I've made those comments clear to the Attorney General before I left Louisiana and while I'm a member of Congress. I just think it's something that we should put behind us. We made a mistake. We've changed the rules and the regulations as to how law enforcement officers are to deal with people, and there's a civil suit, and we should resolve it and move on. Yes, sir.
Congressman, I'm curious, looking towards the midterms now, what the party is talking about on the Hill. Are we pushing for a more progressive approach now, or what did we learn from the past election? Do we need to go more moderate?
Well, we're not using terms like moderate or progressive. We're using terms like draconian because we're under, a draconian, in my view, president. And I forgot, I should have repeated the question. But at the end of the day, Democrats, we realize that we have a lot of work to do. And one of our jobs is to get back to our respective districts and talk to our constituents, hold town hall meetings, and get people excited. People are upset. We got to turn that, their upsetness into excitement for Election Day nationwide.
If I can follow up on that, sir, how do you become the party that's not just anti-Trump, but a new, if you want to call it progressive, anti-draconian move forward? How do you go about doing that if it's not just a retaliatory message?
Well, I think the people, when you start talking about taking away 17 million people, taking away their health care, there's one person that's responsible for that, and we can't avoid talking about that person. You start talking, taking away people's SNAP benefits. There's one person responsible for that. When you start talking about taking away the thousands upon thousands upon thousands of jobs from federal employees, closing the Department of Education, and even talked about closing FEMA until, members of this delegation and others stood up to him. At the end of the day, I really think, we don't have to win this election, these elections running against any one individual. We just have to, you know, express to people what has happened in the past and how we want to change it. Yes, sir.
To follow up on that, how strong, how deep, how extensive of a field of Democrats do you expect to see in the midterms in Louisiana? As you know, Democrats have sometimes struggled to contend with the big races against, you know, Bill Cassidy and Republican members of Congress.
Well, in Louisiana, I mean, you know, I hate to sound like a broken record, but most people who are registered to vote are Democrats. They don't necessarily vote that way. But I think that people just need to talk about the issues that are close to the people of the state. I mean, when, you know, we're an expansion state. You know, people did not want to and do not want to lose their health insurance. You know, people do not want to lose their SNAP benefits. You know, people do not want to give the richest of the rich a tax break and take away their health, the poorest people, health care benefits. That doesn't just ring here in Louisiana, it rings louder here because we're an expansion state and we have so many people benefiting. You know, we got elderly people, we have people who have disabilities. They will be affected by this bill. This bill is not going to affect, you know, Democrats and not Republicans. This bill is going to affect Democrats and Republicans. It's going to affect, you know, blacks and whites and Hispanic, everybody. It's just a bad bill. So I think we have to get out there and advocate what the bill really does, you know, as Democrats, and I think we'll see a big difference this midterm.
But do you expect to see Democrats contending, and all strong Democrats contending?
Well, I don't know. I wish I had the answer to that question. I don't know. I mean, that's going to be a decision that the Democratic Party has to make, and I'm sure they're working to make those kind of decisions. But the only way we can get better in this country is if we elect people that are more aligned with the views, you know, of our state and of the several states. The people of Louisiana, you know, basically going to have to make those decisions. Yes, ma'am.
Congressman Fields, you've long championed educational equity for K-12 improvements to workforce development. As our organization works to unify and strengthen after-school and mentorship programs across the city, how can we partner with your office to secure stronger federal or state-level support for youth attendance and academic outcomes in Louisiana's 6th congressional district? And would you be open to an ongoing dialogue about how your office can help elevate this work?
All right, will I be amenable to an ongoing dialogue? The answer is yes. Actually, we started the Education Caucus. I mean, when I left, they ended it. You know, it just makes no sense for the United States Congress not to have a caucus on education. So we rejuvenated the Education Caucus, and yes, my office would be willing and ready and able to work with anybody who wants to push education forward in this state and this nation. Because I do believe that education is the key to anybody's success, to Louisiana's success, to the nation's success. And we need to put more emphasis on it because we're losing so many, you know, that pipeline of teachers there, we're losing it. And we need to address it as soon as possible. Yes, sir, and yes, sir.
Thank you, first of all, Congressman, for your unwavering support for public broadcasting. With the ongoing appropriations coming up now, in your honest opinion, do you think that there will be a government shutdown because there can't be any bipartisanship, which would thus for the dash our hopes of getting some of our funding reappropriated?
Well, I'm hopeful. I'm going to take a step further than that. I'm hopeful that come the midterm elections, Democrats will win the majority, and then we will have an independent body that will say yes or no to the president based on the substance of the issue and not based on a party affiliation. And look, I can say that with great credibility. This is not my first rodeo. I served in the Congress under a Democratic president. President Clinton was president of the United States when I served in Congress, and I said to my president no on 2 big occasions. And look, he had me to come to the White House, and he had the Attorney General, and he had his, Secretary of Commerce and all that beat with me about 2 big issues. His presidency depended on it, but it was bad in my view for my district, and I said no to the president. That's the way it should be, because just because the president says yes doesn't mean that you say yes. NAFTA. I had a lot of textile. I had a large textile industry influence in my district, and I couldn't vote for the North American Free Trade Agreement. And I said no to him once, twice, and 3 times, and I voted no. Same thing with the crime bill. I don't believe in a death penalty. And I said to my president, no, we need a Congress like that for the sake of the country. We're not there to rubber stamp what the president says simply because we're of the same party. And I think to answer your question more precisely, I think in another 16 months, we will elect a new Congress, and we will at least have 2 independent branches of government, and I'll say 3 as well, because the Supreme Court, I do think, has managed to say no to the president on several occasions when he was absolutely wrong. We're destroying our democracy as we know it today. It's not about party, it's about right and wrong, constitutional and unconstitutional. Yes, sir, in the back.
Representative Fields, what is your solution for the 36, almost $37 trillion national debt?
Well, let me tell you what it's not. What it's not is not voting for the big ugly bill, because they increased the deficit. They increased the deficit. Look, I have said time and time again, we should reduce the deficit. When President Clinton was president, what did we do? We reduced the deficit. Under all Democratic presidents in modern time, the deficit was reduced. That's not a partisan issue. That's just a human issue. And I really don't see for the life of me how some of my colleagues were so adamant about passing this bill, and it increased the deficit by $3 trillion. It's hard, sitting on that floor, talking to people who know it's wrong, and they do it anyway. President Trump didn't elect me. I didn't get 1 vote from President Trump. He don't live in Louisiana. I'm not representing President Trump. I'm representing the people of the 6th district. And the quicker rather we can get people to understand that, the better off our nation will be, in my view. All right, Mr. Lewis.
Under the big bill, it's anticipated that many rural hospitals in Louisiana will close, which will affect not only Medicaid, but other people in that community won't get health care. It's also anticipated it will shoot a big hole in the state budget. under your experience as a former senator, who do you think will suffer from that big budget hole that this bill's going to create?
Well, I mean, the answer is obvious. It's going to be the people who are being cut off of Medicaid, you know? When I took the oath of office, you know, I swore to protect the Constitution and protect the health and welfare of the people of the country. And I will continue to do that. You know, one president talked about trickle-down economy. Let me talk about trickle-up economy. You know, as a result of this big ugly bill, you're gonna have a trickle-up. It will have a trickle-up effect, because when people don't have health care, they don't go to the doctor. And when they don't go to the doctors, hospitals close. And hospitals in Louisiana will close. Don't take my word for it. The Congressional Budget Office, they've made it very clear hospitals will close. That's why rural hospitals flew up to Washington, D.C., all over the country, and worked out this $50 billion bailout. That's not enough. Hospitals will close. You know, and when we talk about SNAP, I tell people all the time, you know, grocery stores will close. You know, it is, you know, it's amazing to me how we could, you know, I don't want to get biblical, but the poor shall always be with us. You know, and if we can't, and in the Bible it talks about if you do it unto the least of thy brethren, you've also done it unto me. You know, I'm not there to go and represent, you know, the big Fortune 500 companies. They're going to do fine all by themselves. I'm here to represent the least of them. And it always works. When we take care of the folk at the bottom, it works. You know? Yes. I don't think I went to the step. Yes, ma'am. I'm trying to get the ones I'm not going to first.
I'm probably the senior in the room.
Yes, ma'am.
And I appreciate your coming today, but one of the things that I see as one of our greatest challenges is that the racial divide seems to be getting wider and wider. So in your lifetime, what do you think you can do? I see a lot of disrespect in Congress that should not be occurring with from both sides. So what can you do, and what do we need to do to improve that? Because America will suffer. We will all suffer, and we're bordering on that right now, and I ask that respectfully.
And I appreciate it. I try to handle my discourse in a professional way. I respect all of my colleagues, irrespective of their party affiliation, because they are members and people elected them to come to Washington to debate on their behalf. I think we need to be more civil, not only at the national level, but also at state level and local level as well. I mean, I just think that our discourse should always be civil, no matter how much we disagree. And we disagree a lot. Fortunately, from the national perspective, unless, you know, I've missed something in the last, the discourse, for the most part, it gets real heated. It's been respectful. You know, but people need to go to the polls and vote their convictions this election. And that's one of the things I'm trying to get out all across the state. I mean, all across my district. Yes, sir.
Congressman, any word, any comment on the changes to the primary process here in Louisiana? How do you see that impacting new closed party primary system? How do you see that impacting future elections, especially midterms?
All right, how do I remembered it because you made mention of it, I think. Somebody from your table did. How do I feel about the impact of closed primary elections? But quite frankly, you know, I'm an advocate of closed primaries for congressional elections. I passed the bill several years ago. The last time we had closed primaries was under the bill that I passed. Why do I feel that way? Because in Washington, believe it or not, everything is based on party politics for the most part. And so we ought to not run from it and send our members of Congress to Washington last. And that was my biggest challenge. We should not send members to Congress last because all of the decisions are made once they get there. We put ourselves in a disadvantaged position as a state when we send our members to Congress last. So I changed it, and they changed it back, and now it's been changed back to closed primary. I feel good about it. I don't think anything terrible will happen as a result of closed primary election. I don't know if I would do it for every election. I just noticed there's a representative in here today. Good to see you, sir. I don't know if two representatives in here today. Let's give our representatives a big round of applause. I've enjoyed working with them. I don't know if I would change it for everybody, but Congress for sure. Federal elections, absolutely. I don't think it brings any hurt, harm, or danger. We get a chance to elect a person in a partisan fashion because that's where they go. And they go into Washington, and it's going to be very partisan. It's so partisan in Washington until you sit on a certain side of the aisle. And we ought to not be bashful about that, and we send people there to do good for everybody. When I go to Washington, I don't go to Washington as a do-gooder for Democrats. I'm a Democrat, proud of it. I go to Washington to do good for the people of the 6th District. But sending members to Congress last is just absolutely crazy, and that's why I don't think closed primary is going to hurt at all. I'm going to take 2 more questions this high time. Is that okay?
Yeah.
All right. Yes, sir.
So there's been a lot of discussion today about political strategy and then also needed policy. So with those two on balance, something that we've seen in recent days that has kind of split the Republican Party has been Jeffrey Epstein files. How much do you believe Democrats should be focusing on issues like that are politically advantageous versus potential policy that they want to get through but are having challenges doing so?
I mean, we had this discussion before I left Washington. At the end of the day, I think we should deal with the issues that affect people back home directly, like the big ugly deal. The Epstein files, listen, the president said he was going to release them, and he hasn't, transparency is good. Release them, just release them. But do I think that should be the Democrats' main issue? No. Because it doesn't really affect the people back home, I do think it's a credibility issue for the president because he said he was going to release it, hadn't released them. So release them. Release them, let's get it behind us, and let's move on. That's my view, and that's what I said in Washington before I left. We should continue to focus on the issues that really matter to the people of our districts. And people in the 6th District are more concerned about losing their health care than the Epstein files. They're more concerned about feeding their babies than the Epstein files. But Epstein files, is not going away until the president release the documents. And if he chooses not to, the House Oversight Committee has already voted to have those documents brought to them, and they're going to deal with it in the appropriate way. One last question. I'm going to go to my good friend, Mr. Let me tell you, I can't say what, huh?
On a lighter note, too.
On the lighter note. My son, we were on a fishing trip, and he became the doctor for my son because my son took so sick. He was so ill, on a boat, and but this response.
On a lighter note, you're doing so much. You got one of your colleagues it really does a great job of selling Louisiana outdoor sugar. I'm talking about to our car. I know once or twice a month, when he comes home, he's fishing in Lake Pontchartrain, and he's bringing people from all over the country. I see you take care of business, and you take care of your party. That's how you keep getting elected. But you think you can make a little trip and over here and bring some of them people?
Right on.
Hey, they know what we're going through. You know?
No, I talked to Representative Carter, and the fishing rodeo, is that real soon? Because that was is this weekend? There are a few members who are actually flying up here for that, and I shared with him I'm gonna try to make it. I just have such a busy town hall scheduled meeting, but I will try to do that. Listen, no, thank you for having me. I want to thank you all for having me. Listen, I know there's, without a doubt, everybody in this room will not agree with me on every position I take. And I say this at every town hall meeting I have. Folk will disagree with me. You know, I will take positions and you will disagree, but here's what you're not, here's what's not going to happen. You're not going to be able to talk to me. Anytime you disagree with me, call me. Let's talk. Let's have a, you know, like Ms. Dent said, let's have a intelligent conversation. That's what I'm there for. I'm here to listen to you and try to do the best I can. I can't represent, I can't vote the way everybody wants me to vote every time, because that's impossible. We have different views. But I'm going to do my best to learn your position and then ultimately make the decision that I make. Thank you all so very much.